Welcome to A Chef's Grimoire, Summer. Today we'll be working with the world. Maybe you opened this video because you were drawn to the photo of the food. Maybe you opened the video because you were intrigued by the title. Are you a foodie? Are you a tarot enthusiast that's either a beginner, advanced, or somewhere in between? I'm Chef Lisa, and I'm glad you joined me because we'll be walking through the Major Arcana with a culinary eye. We'll learn wisdom from the cards in addition to the basic skills of cooking. It's going to be a fantastic journey, and you'll help me write content because it'll eventually be a book called A Chef's Grimoire, fusion of the esoteric art of tarot and the tangible art of cooking. Thanks for watching. Let's get cooking. Welcome, and here we are back on the Major Arcana page. In all my videos, we started on this page, and it's just a reminder of where we've come from with our Fool and all the lines that we've taken so far. So the first line is the line of consciousness, second line, line of subconsciousness, third line, superconsciousness. We're at the last card in the Major Arcana, the world. Before we turn to the card, as always, I will list the timestamps in the video. Many of you that tune in might not want to learn about the symbolism and the history and the meaning of the card, which is usually around the first half hour of the video. The second part of the video is where all the cooking happens. So if you wish to jump ahead, just look for the timestamps either on the lower part of the video or in the description, which is where I'd list them. So that said, let's move on to the world card page in A Chef's Grimoire. The world. Absolutely beautiful. Now this part of the page is the depiction from the Rider Waite Smith deck. The illustrations by Pamela Coleman Smith. Because I have so much room on my page, I extended the drawing out and up and down, but the symbolism of the card is here. And I haven't changed anything. The only thing I've did was elongate it and maybe change the colors a little bit. Before we get into the history, symbolism, and all of the wonderful pictures here in the card and what they mean, we're going to continue with the Fool's Journey. The Fool's Journey started with the Magician all the way back, number 1. You can revert back to all the videos to go through the story, but this is the last chapter in the story, and I'll read it to you now, and then we'll go into all of the good juicy bits of the card. The Fool stood in front of the mirror in the tiny efficiency apartment they rented. They each got a new outfit to wear for the big celebration happening that evening. The Fool clips on the bow tie that they bought at Goodwill, and Ruby changes into her new dress and heels. The event is in honor of the Fool, celebrating their heroism of saving a life. As the Fool looks at their reflection, they think, who is this new person? They think about how their life has been touched by all the people and situations they experienced so far, and realizing now that they touched all those around them as well. It was all connected, held together by invisible strings. If my journey had not led me to where I am today, I would not have been there to save that little boy. Everything leading up to this very moment seems to have been planned somehow, but not by me. Maybe there is something true in the words of the Hierophant. Maybe there is divine source that watches over us and guides us. "Time to go, fool," said Ruby. They both hopped in the car and drove to the pool, which was decorated with lights, streamers, and the ambiance of lively music. The two guards who were with the fool the day the boy was saved greeted them. "This is quite an affair. Yours was the only life-saving in the history of the pool, which opened 21 years ago." The fool smiled at them as they were led into the main area where all the people were. They all gathered around and raised their glasses to the fool in a toast of congratulations. Breaking through the crowd was the mother with the little boy in tow. The crowd parted to let them through. She immediately threw open her arms to embrace the fool, almost as tightly as she did her son after he came to. With teary eyes of adornment and appreciation, the woman said 2 words: "Thank you." They locked eyes for a moment until the little boy tugged on the fool's shirt. The fool looked down, and the boy extended a bouquet of flowers and a raggedy stuffed owl. "Who is this?" asked the fool of the stuffed toy. "It's my owl. My mom said it was wisdom, and that is the best gift to have," said the boy. "Well, thank you. But don't you think you should have wisdom?" asked the fool. "Maybe. Someday," said the boy, then proceeded to hug the fool. The crowd cheered and champagne bottles popped. The fool, wiping a tear away, felt Ruby tap them on the shoulder. "Want to dance?" The evening was perfect, and the fool and Ruby danced until dawn, carefree, with wisdom in their pocket. Safety in the world to move and dance with your own rhythm. The World card, 21. Keywords for this card are success, endings, wrapping up, reaching the top of the mountain, confirmation you're on the right path, and where it appears in your spread when you turn this card is where you should put all of your energy. It should put where you should put your focus. All the other cards around it will give you more clarity to the meaning of where and why it showed up in the reading. This card also has a keyword of travel. Now, travel is really when you go somewhere and you travel, you're opening your mind, right? It could be to the farmer's market just down the street, or it could be to France, Italy, Norway. I mean, it could be miles and miles from your home, or it could be right in your backyard. But the word travel means to go to some place you've never been before, or to experience something you've never experienced before. So it gives you a whole new perspective. And that's why travel, the word, the phrase, the meaning, is associated with this card. To open one's mind, to open to new experiences, to gain wisdom in your journey, to notice. If you've traveled, right, and you've been somewhere different and then you come home, you notice differences. You notice maybe the people aren't as open or kind, especially if you live in New York City, right? So you go somewhere else and everybody is smiling at you, they make eye contact, you go back to New York City, you keep your head down, you don't look up, and you just go about your business. So you notice these things more when you're brought out of context and put into a new situation, either by choice or not by choice, right? But it's all connected to the world. It's opening your horizons. So the main objective of the Fool card and the whole journey of the Major Arcana is that the Fool, or your querent, or yourself, whoever you're turning these cards for, goes on a journey, and it's a journey of self-discovery. A journey involves work, and that's where we get the great work, the alchemical work, right? It's tempering of polarities, and we've discussed all the different polarities. You can't have dark without light. You can't have masculine without feminine. So that list goes on and on for infinity. But there's always the polarities. There's always one and then the other. And the work, or the alchemical work, is to balance all of it. When you get to the World card, you've achieved that status. Now, the astrology for the World, usually I go into the star sign that's associated with the card, but this particular card does not have a star sign, believe it or not. However, it's ruled by the planet Saturn. And Saturn is hard matter. Yes, it's planetary boundary of time, structures, and work. Now, Saturn has been in the Major Arcana from the beginning to now, what is the end. But it's not been depicted. It's just been hovering in the background. And since Saturn is the boundaries on time, structures, and work, it's been absorbed into each card in a different, tangible way. Empress, it would be very nurturing. Emperor, it would be a very strict. In the moon, it would be very subconscious. So Saturn has been there, just in different contexts to the cards that we would talk about. So each time we move to a different card, we're gently, by Saturn, being course corrected, brought back to the path that we should, by divine intervention, be on. Numerology for the card is 21. And we have the Roman numerals here of XXI, which is 10 is an X, 10 is an X, and I is a 1, 21. As you might be aware with numerology, when you have a double digit, you have to add it together, add two digits together to get a single digit. So 21 would be 2 plus 1. 2 reverts back to the high priestess. 1 reverts back to the magician. And then if you add 2 plus 1, it's 3, the empress. 1, 2, 3. The first 3 cards we meet in the majors all correlates with the world, which is the last card in the majors. So one thing I came across in my research, and it goes back to the numerology of the card, is the Vesica Pisces. So you'll see here, this is a depiction of Christ in majesty, and it's a ivory plaque on a wooden coffret from Cologne, Italy. It's the first half of the 13th century. This was carved into the ivory. It's Christ that is within a Vesica Pisces, and we've got the 4 Avangelists on either side of them. Now, isn't it interesting? This, and here we have this. So this bit here is for my geometry nerds, or my mathematicians, because I am not a mathematician, but I wanted to point this out because it was just, it really blew my mind. So the height and width ratio of the Vesica Pisces is precisely 265 over 153, which is the root number of the number 3. Crazy, right? So we were talking about the numerology and how 21 is 2 plus 1 equals 3. And 3 goes back to the Empress, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, the first steps in a journey, right? You put one foot in front of the other to get to your first destination. I just love that. I think, you gotta start to get to the end. So procrastination brings you nowhere. Take the journey. Dance. So the other thing I wanted to show you was the World card in various original tarot cards dating back to the 15th century. The Visconti Sforza from the 15th century has the twins, but see how they're holding up the world. And what's in the world? They're holding up the highest ranking thing known at that time, which was kingdom. And it could be just a tangible depiction of the kingdom, meaning kingdom of Christ, or it could just be the king's kingdom, meaning if you get to that high ranking, you've got the world in your hands. This card in the center is from the Charles VI deck, and this was more or less around the same time. All of these cards mainly were. But this is a woman holding a rod in one hand and a disc or a world or an orb in the other, and her being on top of the circle, which has the mountains and basically, again, a kingdom, a village. She's on top of all of it. So the world. In the Marseille Tarot, we have very similar to the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. So this card is really where most of the depictions of the tarot in the Rider-Waite-Smith deck originate from. And here we see Le Monde, which is the world. So one of the first things in the depiction of the card that I want to talk about is this wreath here. So the wreath in all the other cards that we just saw are round, more like disc shapes. But we talked about the Vesica Pisces, and Vesica Pisces is when you take two circles and you overlap them so that this part looks like this, right? So if I took two circles and overlapped them, the inside of that overlap is the Vesica Pisces. And throughout time, it has become a Christian symbol. It's usually always put around holy figures. This card is not depicted as a Vesica Pisces. Instead, it's more of a wreath or a garland. And if you notice, it really looks like a giant zero. And if you remember, our Fool's number of their card is 0. So here we are at the end of the journey, but we have the huge reminder that the journey never ends. And not only is it within the circle or the wreath, it's also within the ties of the wreath, because these ties are infinity symbols. Remember, the magician had an infinity symbol over their head, as well as strength. They're infinity symbols that are holding the wreath together. Again, going back to the fact that there is unlimited potential. All you have to do is take the first step in whatever journey you're going to go on. And the other thing that's really interesting to me is the actual depiction of this wreath, because Pamela Colman Smith, as we know, was a talented artist. But to me, this doesn't look like a laurel wreath. Instead, at first sight, it looks like the scales of a snake. And I'm just saying that because if that's true, then it goes back to the Ouroboros in our Magician card. And the Ouroboros is a snake that's wrapped its tail around and is eating its own tail. So it's a circle, but the snake is eating its own tail. So we have this little leaf, if it's laurel leaf, hanging down. It could be the serpent's head. It could be the serpent's tongue. And I just feel like this really looks like snake scales, which is fitting, right? And it brings us right back to the Magician, number 1. The other thing that the wreath or the zero or this particular circle symbolizes is the Wheel of Fortune. The Wheel of Fortune had these 4 characters in that card as well. It also is a round, so oval, but let's say round, right? Brings in the Sun card, the Moon card, right? 0, going back to the Fool, is the cycle of life, right? So it's an infinite, endless loop. And when we bring it back to the Vesica Pisces, if it was in that shape, Vesica Pisces is the divine feminine. And we have these 4 characters. And the 4 characters are, according to Arthur Waite, the 4 living creatures of the Apocalypse and Ezekiel's vision, attributed to the Evangelists in Christian symbolism, are grouped around the elliptical garland. The dancer is guarded by the divine watchers, as if by powers and graces of the holy name. Tetragrammation, those 4 ineffable letters which are sometimes attributed to the mystical beasts. The creator of the Rider-Waite-Smith deck's flowery language, that was his meaning as to why these 4 characters are in this card. Now, the 4 evangelists are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, who are traditionally recognized as the authors of the 4 Gospels in the New Testament. They're called evangelists because their writings proclaim good news of Jesus Christ. But they could also be, and as we talked about in the Wheel of Fortune, the 4 fixed signs of the zodiac. They could be the 4 elements, and they could be the 4 seasons. So, as with any one thing, in this card, it can mean many things. But the reason for being here is that they are the guides to help bring you from one phase to the next. Fixed signs of the zodiac, which are Leo, Taurus, Scorpio, and Aquarius, are signs that establish and make things take root. So they're fixed, right? They have roots. So when you get to the world, you've put your roots down. You may not stay in that place, but you've put roots down. And what do roots do? Roots are the life force of what's growing above it. Roots are our knowledge. Roots are our wisdom. So we have this woman here. Arthur Edward Waite, from the Pictorial Key to the Tarot, writes, she is in the act of dancing, and the wand in either hand. It is eloquent as an image of the swirl of the sensitive life, of joy attained in the body, of the soul's intoxication in the earthly paradise. So in the tarot, we know we've seen the 4 Platonic virtues, yes? Or at least we've seen 3 of them. We have seen temperance, we've seen strength, and we've seen justice. Wisdom is one of the virtues, and we find it here. The World card is the wisdom virtue. But the one that really stuck with me about where this dancer came from in a historical setting is the story of Sophia. And Sophia, the name literally means wisdom. And since we're talking about wisdom with this card and the travels that we have taken to get to this point, we are now much wiser. Even though we're ready to start again, we're going to start again in a completely different mindset because we have the wisdom. And wisdom, Sophia, is a story from the Gnostic era, right? A radical take on spirituality. And Sophia was an aeon who lived in the Plumora. This Plumora was perfect embryo. And all the aeons were paired. And many believe that Sophia and Christ were paired as aeons in this Plumora. But Sophia found a crack that illuminated this glorious light that she went towards. And she decided to discover this new light on her own without her partner. And that was basically her fall, because she was ambitious and curious and decided to go outside of the perfect embryo that she was in and without a partner. So the story is vast, it's complicated, but I'm giving you the Reader's Digest version right here. And basically, in her fall from the Pleroma, it creates chaos. And the chaos becomes almost like she gives birth in her fall to this demiurge. The demiurge is really the world we live in. So our dancer here is naked. And as we know in past cards, nudity in tarot just means that you are vulnerable, open. You have nothing to hide. And she has a scarf that's almost wrapped around her. And the scarf, again, going back to the scales of the snake, could very well be a serpent. The way that it's shaped, it could be. It's purple. And if we go back to the Justice card, the veil behind Justice was purple. So it is the veil that we talk about in the High Priestess card, in Justice, in a few other of the majors. And that veil, these characters are in front of the clouds. The clouds always represent the veil. What is that? Well, it's that fine line between our realistic world and our spiritual world. So the fact that she has it wrapped around herself means that she's now commanding both the material world and the spiritual world. Our dancer is also holding two batons or two wands. And if you remember, our magician had a wand that he was holding up. And these are that symbol of as above, so below, going back to spirituality and material and the tempering of the two. But you'll notice that these wands are on either side of her. So if we think about the High Priestess or the Hierophant or any of the characters within the majors that had some kind of pillars on either side of them. The pillars represent a doorway. And even though these are just wands and not pillars, they're on either side of her. So going back to the Tree of Life and the three lines of the tree, you have the doorway to the spiritual world. So now that we have a roundabout idea of all of the history and the symbolism of the card, We have a little story that we could take away. Now we have to talk about our menu, because we have the world to feed. We're going to feed the world. And in doing so, I wanted to go around the world. So I didn't want to stick with one cuisine. We're going to do many. We're going to start in Thailand with a Thai peanut butter ramen. We'll then travel to India and make an Indian shrimp curry. We'll visit France with French green beans almondine, and Brooklyn with a Brooklyn blackout cake. Let's get cooking. Mise en place for our noodles consists of ramen, sesame oil, soy sauce, peanut butter, fish sauce, honey, sriracha, orange, lime, ginger powder, garlic, and scallions. First up, we're going to cook our noodles. So I have boiling water, just water. Add your noodles and cook them according to package. While that's happening, we're going to make our peanut sauce. So into a blender, you're going to add the peanut butter, followed by the sriracha, soy sauce, honey, your aromatics of ginger and garlic, fish sauce, orange, and lime. Now the fish sauce is elective. You don't need to use it, but it's going to give you umami flavor, underlining gorgeous, nurturing flavor. So I love to use it. And the orange is going to really make the sauce a little sweeter, which is nice. You want it to coat the back of a spoon just like this, and definitely taste your work. Make sure that it's where you want it to be. For the scallions, we're going to cut off the root ends. And I like to trim the top maybe 3 inches. And we're going to make sure that they're nice and clean. This one looks pretty good, but this other one, I'm going to peel off any unsightly bits. Just like that. Now to cut them. You can cut them straight on if you wish, but I'm actually going to go on an angle, not straight, on an angle. So just angle your knife and thinly slice your scallions. Now to the noodles, I'm going to add about 1/3 of the sauce, and we're going to toss this all together until you don't see clumps of sauce any longer. It's like one homogenized noodle and sauce. Chill these along with the extra sauce, and they're ready to serve. Okay guys, here we are, cold sesame noodles. And they are cold. I did refrigerate them overnight. So, yum! Love these things. And they're so easy to make. All of these recipes I did today, I did on purpose to make them easy. Not only easy, but easy to do in a hot day when you really don't want to cook. And you know the effort is going to give you something that's worth your effort. And this is one of them, the cold sesame noodles. So it's traditional to put a dollop of the sauce on top of the noodles as a presentation for serving, but you do want to dress them lightly as we did prior to that, because you know, it adds to the already dressed noodles, kind of like a salad, right? When you dress a salad, you want to dress it super light and then add the rest of the dressing on the side or around the plate as a presentation. But you don't want to, you don't want to drizzle the whole kit and caboodle on the salad at once, right? You want to do it gradual because you don't want to overpower, right? I am trying, if you don't know what I'm doing, I'm trying not to get a lot on my fork at one time, and I'm having issues, but look at that. All right, I'm a twirler. I don't know if you are, but I certainly am. I think it's a trait of being from New Jersey, but who knows? Anyway, bon appetit. Mmm. 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 Yummy, yummy, yummy. A little heat from the sriracha, not terrible, and that's certainly something that you can control. Either add it in copious amounts, or very lightly, or not at all. Up to you, and that's the beauty of making things yourself, right? You can control it. But this has got a little bit of heat, which I'm not gonna lie is nice, especially since they're cold. So you get the refreshment of the noodle, the satisfying mouthfeel that only noodles can give you. You get that first. Then you realize, oh, it's cold. How refreshing is that? And then, on the back end, a little bit of heat. I like it. And crunch from the scallion. Good. Delicious. Make these. Mmm. Mise en place consists of green beans, a shallot. I have this black garlic salt that I want to try out. Butter, almonds, garlic, and a lemon. Now, I want to make sure that I have an edge on my knife, so if you've watched the first full video, you'll see the difference between honing and sharpening, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm going to hone the knife to get my edge back. Now I'm going to prep the shallots. There's a root end and a stalk end. I'm going to cut off the stalk end. And I have a flat surface I put against the board. Now I'm looking for the hips of the shallots. Shallots, unlike onions, are kind of oblong. So I'm going to cut through the quote-unquote hips, and I have two halves. Now I'm going to peel them all. And what's lovely about shallots is you always get a little bonus, right? There's two shallots within the peel. So pull them apart and make sure that both of them have a root end. Now that my shallots are peeled, I'm going to use half for the curry dish and half for the green beans. So these are for the green beans, and I've decided that I'm going to slice them. I'm going to start at the tip, not at the center of the knife, because I want the knife to have somewhere to go. It rocks forward and trails back. So we're going to thinly slice these shallots for the green bean dish. Now for our curry dish, we're going to take the shallot and I'm going to make slits through from the root to the tip, like this. And now I can cross cut it. And what that gives me is a fine chop and or dice. And we're going to set that aside for our curry. Now the green beans are pretty good. I'm leaving the little tendril at the ends on. I like it. I like the aesthetic look of that. But I am looking at the cut ends to make sure that there's no blackening or unsightly bits. You want to take any of those off. So see, like this, that's black there. So I just want to cut it off, and now it's perfect. And we're going to do the same with the other ones that I found. Just trim them out. And we're good to go. I have water boiling, and it's just water right now. But to it, once it comes to a vigorous boil, add your salt.
like your seasoning for pasta. Then add your green beans, and we're going to blanch these for about 4 to 5 minutes. I want to keep them crisp tender. While the green beans are working, we're going to start our sauce. So in another pan, we're going to melt some butter, and I have the heat like a medium-low. I don't want to burn the butter. Add your nuts, and we're going to toast these up. This is going to take about 3 to 4 minutes, depending, again, on the heat of your flame, and also, the thickness of your pan makes a big difference too. But when they get to look like this, you're ready to move on. We're going to add those shallots that we cut up in slices. Give that all a stir and add your garlic. I'm going to do a pinch of that black garlic salt. And finally, the green beans. The green beans were just taken out of their hot water and strained, but they're still hot when you add them to the sauce. Now the lemon zest and a good squeeze of the lemon juice. Give this all a really good toss. And one last sprinkle of seasoning, and these are ready to serve.
Our world tour would not be complete without a little French cuisine thrown in. And let me just tell you for a second, many cultures embrace French cooking, right? American, kind of. I mean, I'm trying to think what we would do that's French as a cuisine. No, not French fries. Okay, so Cajun cooking. It's African and French combined. Of the dishes we did today, Thai cooking is very influenced by French cuisine, right? They incorporate a lot of French technique in their cooking. Indian food, definitely. From the building of the sauces is a French technique. So, as I said, and it wouldn't be a world tour with having a little France on your plate, right? So, this was, again, a very quick and easy side dish that I decided to pair with the curry instead of a carb because we had the noodles as our appetizer and we're gonna have cake for dessert. So we wanna make sure that, like I said before, we're not double or triple carved up, right? So a little goes a long way. Anyway, green beans almondine. It's a classic. It's a great side dish, and you can see it goes together super quick, right? While you're blanching the beans, you're making the sauce. And then in less than 10 minutes time, it comes together. And it's got, well, let's taste it and I'll tell you exactly what it's got. Yum. Okay. So it's got, these green beans are a little al dente, which I prefer rather than mush. But if you like your green beans cooked a little longer, again, you can certainly do that. You don't have to do them the way the directions will state, which is making them al dente. But I like a little crunch on my green bean. That, with the crunch of the almonds and the shallot, and then the pop of the lemon at the end, a winner. Absolute winner. The flavors are very clean. You can't pick any one out, which is the perfect pairing of a sauce with a protein and or vegetable. I bet this dish would even be delicious cold. You can serve it at a picnic, as a salad. You don't have to serve it as a side dish. This would be a really nice salad to go along with barbecue. Light barbecue, like a grilled chicken breast or grilled shrimp kebabs, you know. So good. Green beans almondine is one of those dishes that's a classic for a reason. Why? It's delicious.
For our mise en place, we have diced tomatoes, coconut milk, paprika, cumin, Kashmiri chili powder, turmeric and ginger, salt, cilantro, a shallot that we've chopped up, ghee, and garlic. We also have our shrimp. Now to a hot pan, we're going to add our ghee. And the ghee is really nothing more than clarified butter. It goes back to, which is used very much in French cooking, right? So this is just ghee. We're going to add those shallots that we chopped up and give that all a stir. We're looking to get the shallots so that they're translucent. Then you're going to add all your spices and toast them up a little bit in the butter. Now we're ready to add the garlic, followed by the salt, tomatoes, and coconut milk. Now you've got your curry, basically. This all needs to marry. All those beautiful spices need to marry into the sauce. You're going to let this cook at a low boil like this for about 10 minutes. You want it to start to reduce and again have a chance to really incorporate all of the flavors together. When you can run your spatula through it and it doesn't pull back into the center quickly, you're ready to add your shrimp. Now you can, if you wish, sear these shrimp either on the barbecue or another pan before adding. But I like to add them raw for two reasons. One, they're going to poach in the liquid, so they're going to absorb all those flavors. And any residual liquids that the shrimp release in the cooking process will go back into the sauce. After about 5 or 6 minutes and your shrimp are cooked through, you're going to taste your work. It should coat the back of a spoon. And this is your opportunity to add anything else for flavoring. But I think it's pretty darn good. 1 pinch of cilantro and it's ready to serve.
A little Indian curry. Now, you saw me make this, right? There's not any curry powder in the mix. There's no curry leaves, no curry. But it's still called a curry. Why? Well, I'm going to read you the definition of curry. A lot of people, especially those that feel that they're not savvy or don't like Indian food, and certainly not curries, But let me read to you the definition of a curry. Curry, in the most general sense, is a dish characterized by a sauce or gravy, often spicy and aromatic. It's made with a blend of spices and herbs and simmered with meat, vegetables, or other ingredients. That's it. That's what a curry is. It's almost like salsa. We think of salsa as, the jarred salsa that's pre-cooked and tomato-based, but salsa means sauce, right? So it carries over into anything. That's why a salsa can be made with mango. It can be made with tomatillo, right? There's lots of ways you can make a salsa, but the baseline meaning of salsa is sauce. Same with a curry. So now you know. This is, again, another quick dish, throw together. And even quicker if you're using something like fish or shrimp, because it takes next to no time to cook. Chicken or beef or pork would take a little longer, but all the results are the same. And again, if you cook this yourself, you can control not only the heat level, but the spice level. So if you like things a little more spicy, meaning more flavorful, then add more of all the ingredients. If you like things not as spicy, meaning heat level, just like with the cold sesame noodles, you can add as much or as little as you like. Let's try. Oh yeah, very good. Creamy, that coconut milk. Again, we've discussed this many times with all the cooking we've done so far, but good quality ingredients like your coconut milk make all the difference in a dish. It really does. So this coconut milk was just coconut, water, and a thickener of maybe a natural guar gum. Nothing else. And it makes all the difference. It's cleaner in flavor, sweet without being sweetened, right? Because coconut is, generally a little sweet, although it can be savory. And it's doing both jobs here. Yum. The tomatoes are there, but you really can't taste them. In the end, I believe the tomatoes are really just for the color of the dish. But excellent. Now, of course, serve this with rice, right? Basmati rice. Delicious. Or naan. Forgo the rice and serve with naan. It just breaks my heart when I see double carbs introduced to a meal, right? So one or the other. Certainly if you're looking to, carb out, then do both. But for me, when I would have go to an Indian restaurant, I would either order rice or bread, right? Not both. Bread is amazing because you can lop it up, and go to town and eat instead of with a fork with your bread, which is always fun. But yeah, that's perfect pairing with this dish. Now, I did a green beans today because I wanted to bring a little French cooking into our world tour. But yeah, curry in a hurry. Delicious.
For our cake ingredients, we have flour, Dutch processed cocoa, espresso, coconut oil, yogurt, buttermilk, baking soda, and an egg. For our pudding ingredients, we have milk, sugar, Dutch processed cocoa, and flour. And for our buttercream, we have powdered sugar, dark chocolate chips, Dutch processed cocoa, butter, and milk. Now, special ingredients are also going to be 2 6-inch cake pans, some pastry tips, a pastry bag, and I have this handy dandy Lazy Susan. It's for cake decorating. I bought it for like $10 at my local craft store. Now, for the pans, you want to make sure they're lined with parchment. So I have a circle cut, and let me show you how I did that. I'm taking a 1/4 sheet of parchment paper, and I'm going to fold it like a book. And now I'm going to fold it on itself again, like a greeting card. All the open bits are at the top, and the closed bit is at my thumb. I'm going to turn it on itself to make a cone. Again, open bits at the top. And now turn it on itself again on the opposite direction to make a smaller cone with all of the open bits at the top. Now you're looking to get the diameter, right? The thickness of the diameter. So put the point of the cone in the center of your pan and then just eyeball where you're going to cut. And now you can open it up, and if it's too large, you already have the creases, so you can refold it and cut again. But basically make sure that it fits all around the bottom and a little bit up the sides. Now, to make the cake, we're going to add all of the wet ingredients into your bowl. And when it comes to cracking the egg, crack it on a hard surface, then open the shell over your work. Don't crack on the side of the bowl. You're more than likely going to get shells in your work. Set that aside. Now in another bowl, you're going to mix all of your dry ingredients. Now notice I'm using a strainer to strain the chocolate powder, because that and powdered sugar tend to get clumpy as they sit. So sift your work, and then you won't have to worry about lumps in the end result. Put all of your dry ingredients into the bowl, mix it up. This is my kind of cake. Dump and go. So now I'm going to mix up my wet ingredients, and once it's all homogenized and beautiful, add your dry to your wet and mix that up a little bit. You want this all to come together. I'm not using any electronic devices. I'm just doing this all by hand in the bowl. And it's going to be pretty thick. So what I'm going to do is divide the dough in the bowl so I know how much to put in each of the cake pans. And then bring that batter into the cake pan and spread it out as evenly as you can. And do that to both pans. Once your pans are ready, pop them onto a sheet tray and have a 350 oven available for these to bake for 30 minutes. Now to make the buttercream, we're going to need to melt that dark chocolate. So I don't have a double boiler and I don't have a microwave, so I'm just going to get a pot with water, place a bowl with the chocolate in it on top, making sure the bowl does not touch the water, and just simmer this until the chocolate is melted. While that's happening, we're going to cream our butter, and I'm using a hand mixer to do this. Now we're going to add the powdered sugar, and again, I stress, make sure the powdered sugar and the cocoa powder are sieved first. Then, prior to adding my electric mixer, I'm going to kind of bring the butter and the dry ingredients together, because if I just put my whisk in there and turned on the motor, it would go all over my kitchen. I don't want that to happen. So once it gets incorporated, then you can turn back to machine and hand blend this with the blender until it looks like frosting. Now we're going to add that melted chocolate, and this chocolate is your life preserver. and I'll tell you why in just a second. But we're going to incorporate this into our buttercream. Now we're going to whip the whole thing until it comes together. And you could set this aside while you make your pudding. Now for the pudding, we're going to add our milk, the sugar, and sifting that cocoa powder. And also the flour. Now once all these ingredients are together, give it a stir. Now you can turn on your flame. I'm going to go about a medium heat. I'm getting this to a high simmer. I don't want it to boil, just a high simmer. And what we're going to do now is we're going to temper an egg. Now, remember temperance? This is where we learned this technique. So you scramble your egg, and then you slowly add a little bit of the hot chocolate or hot liquid, whisking as quickly as you can. And I like to do at least 2 to 3 ladlefuls of the hot liquid into the egg. And if it's not scrambling in the bowl, you're good to go. But basically you're bringing the temperature of the egg to the same temperature as what's in the pot. Pour that egg mixture into your pot, and now it's going to be about 8 minutes until it becomes nice and thick. You're looking to see the wire whips retain their shape in the liquid of the pudding. Once that happens, turn off your heat. Give it all a stir so it doesn't coagulate at the bottom of the pan. And we're going to strain this out. This is insurance policy, so you don't get any, again, coagulated bits in your pudding. This is going to chill overnight if possible, or at least a couple hours. But put a nice piece of parchment and or plastic, although I don't like plastic, so parchment paper on top of the surface so it doesn't form a skin. Now we're going to take our chilled cakes or our cooled cakes out of the pan. I'm just going to use an offset spatula and pry it out. They should come out very easily. And once they're both out, you're going to take a look and see they're pretty thin, but we're going to cut these in half lengthwise. So I'm going to take a really nice long serrated knife. It's used for breads. I'm going to find center, and then I'm going to be mindful to keep my knife straight and cut straight through. Nice. You're going to do that with the other half as well. Find center and cut through. Now, here's a trick I learned from Pastry Chef. You take a little of your buttercream and put it onto the Lazy Susan that you're going to be decorating your cake on, and then put your first layer down. This is going to keep it in place as you rotate the Lazy Susan to ice. I'm going to peel off that parchment paper from my pudding, which has been chilled. And all of this pudding is going to go in your cake. So you're going to be putting pudding between 3 layers, and the top layer is going to be iced. So just keep that in mind when you're adding the pudding to your layers. You're going to spread it out almost to the edge, maybe a little less than 1/4 inch around that's not doesn't have any pudding on it, because when you start to press layers it's going to seep a little bit, so you want to make sure you have room for that to happen. Place another layer on top and add more of your pudding. Now, going back to seepage, remember I said that the melted chocolate in the buttercream is like a golden egg, yeah? Well, that's because when it chills, the chocolate makes the buttercream become more solid, and it acts as a barrier so the pudding won't seep through, and it'll just stay iced and the pudding will stay contained in your layers. Now the pastry bag and tips are elective. You do not need to use these. You can certainly ice your whole cake with an offset spatula or even a silicone spatula for that matter. But I wanted to make this a little more special. So to add your pastry tip, put it into the bag, and we're going to cut the bag back at the tip so that I can press the tip through and all of the decorated parts are exposed and not in the bag. I'm going to turn it on itself and put it into a large glass and drape the outer edges of the bag around it and then open it up with my hand so it's ready to receive the buttercream into it. I'm going to put again about a third into the piping bag, and the rest I'm just going to use with my offset spatula and the Lazy Susan and just decorate the whole thing. So I've iced this, and I apologize, I thought I had the video running when I was icing, but I didn't, so I apologize. But you know how to ice a cake. You're going to take your offset spatula and move it from the Lazy Susan to a platter so everything is nice and clean. And now I have these candles that I wanted to add to the cake. So I'm going to look and see where I'm going to place them. Am I going to place them center or back a little further? I think here. Nice. Now I can pipe my icing around and finish off the cake with some fresh strawberries. Beautiful.
We did it! 21. Let's cut into it and have a treat. Beautiful. Gorgeous. Yeah. Okay, you know from watching my videos, anytime I have to pull out my KitchenAid with baking, it's huge. Huge. So making a layer cake is way out of my scope. But this one was easy to get my head around, right? I wasn't nervous about getting the perfect crumb coat at the end and doing everything perfect. The beauty about this blackout cake is it's not supposed to be perfect. It can be lopsided, which mine was. It can be crumbly with the crumbs of the cake outside of the icing. As a matter of fact, if you have extra cake that falls apart, crumble it up and smush it along the sides of the cake. It just adds to its aesthetic look and feel. The pudding couldn't be easier to throw together. Making pudding from scratch can be intimidating. And I love that this one didn't require cornstarch. No cornstarch at all, which is really nice. Not in the pudding, not anywhere in the cake. It's baking soda in the cake, if you remember. And the cake itself is it's almost like a brownie. And also remember, the sugar is only in the pudding and the icing, not the cake. So I wanted to include something from Brooklyn in the world tour because Brooklyn is a world amongst itself. It's its own world. So here we go. Wow. For as much richness that went into this cake, it's very light. It's very light. From the icing to the pudding, delicious. Not overly sweet, and you can taste the espresso. I like that, but if you don't like the taste of coffee, you don't need to use it. You can omit it. Super great. Super great. Yay, Brooklyn. Yay, Brooklyn. In celebrating our journey through the Major Arcana, I wanted our final dessert to be a layer cake, because I kind of feel like most people, when they want something for a celebration like a birthday, you think of a birthday cake, all the icons of birthday cakes are layer cakes, right? That's what it is. So the iconic emblem of a celebratory event is the layer cake. And that's why I did research on cakes around the world, and there's many. I was thinking even strawberry shortcake, which is coveted in Asia, as well as here, American, where it was originated. But when I saw this Brooklyn blackout cake, I was like, yeah, that's it. I was a little unsure about the cake. I thought, when you think of layer cakes, you think of a spongy, fluffy, centered cake and all of the sweetness around it. But the cake itself is not going to rise. It's not going to rise very much at all. So you saw when I cut it in half how thin it was already. Now, because of that denseness of the cake and almost like brownie-like texture, you don't want your layers to be thick. You want them to be thin. So it all worked out in the end. As I said, was just a little bit concerned about the cake being too dense, but it's not. It complements everything else that's so light. Now, what I said in the beginning stands true. All the recipes I wanted to do today, I wanted them to be summer proof. And what do I mean by that? Well, in summer, in hot days, even if you have central air or air conditioning in your house, you're still hot and you don't want to cook. So if you are to or need to make the effort of cooking, you want something that's going to be super quick, so you don't have to exert that much effort, and you want your effort to be fantastic results. A cake like this, our noodles, green beans, amandine, and curry in a hurry. There you go. You can zhuzh up that menu over and over and over again in many ways. This cake is perfect for anybody's birthday in summer. Perfect as an ending to a lovely barbecue. Perfect to bring when eating al fresco. Just make sure you keep it on ice. The texture is out of this world. Really great. And I'll be honest, I'm not a chocolate girl. I like chocolate. I like it a lot. But I prefer vanilla. This might make me change my mind. We made it. We celebrated. We've only touched the surface, the very surface of what the world card represents. There's so much rich, deep meaning within the card. And no one really knows until they'd gone through the whole Major Arcana to find themselves finally at the World card as to what that card means to them. So, this video was more about, again, giving you just a little bit of the history, the symbolism, everything that you can tangibly use to bring into a reading when the World card comes up for you, if you're reading for a querent or if you're the querent yourself. When that card comes up, the World, in any spread, that particular card is where all the focus should go. It should be the main objective in the reading because it's the final outcome. So in seeing it before the end of the journey, it will course correct you and it will give you the guidance to get back onto track of where you want to eventually be. So I'm going to round this whole series up as we are with the World card and being the last card in the Major Arcana and therefore the last card in this series with a story. It's a story that I've heard just a while back, and I'm going to paraphrase most of it and I'm going to tidy it up so that it's not as long as it would be if it was told in its entirety. But it's called The Peddler of Saffron. And here's the story. So there was a peddler who sold their wares in the marketplace in Saffron, which is somewhere in England, right? I would say more of the middle of England. Sounds about right. And he would sell his wares. He would sell a whole bunch of stuff. You know, it wasn't just one thing. It was whatever he picked up alongside of the road that he wiped off, cleaned up, and now he's selling. Other things that he invested in to resell. But the people knew that he had a very kind heart. And some would take advantage, unfortunately, and they would give him a sob story and say, unfortunately, I don't have the money to pay you. And he would say, well, how much can you afford? So they would give him maybe half the price of what he wanted for that particular item, and sometimes he would give for free. So with that kind heart and giving away much of what would be lucrative, his home was in disrepair. He didn't have money for extravagant food. So he lived very comfortably, but still lacking. Panes were coming out of the windows in his home. Shingles were falling off his roof. But the one thing he did have was a highly producing apple tree in his backyard. And in the fall, he would open his yard up to the children and the people that lived around him so that they could partake in the tree. But he also turned that tree into part of his wares, where he would press the apples to make cider or make pies, or even just harvest the apples and the best ones, polish up and sell those. So it was lucrative for him. So one day he was sleeping in his home, and with the windows being cracked, it was a heavy rainstorm and rain was coming in and making puddles on the floor. It was a little cold that night because it was fall. But he was asleep in his bed and he heard a voice, go to London town, go to London Bridge, go to London town, go to London Bridge. And he woke up and he said, who's that voice? And he looked down at the edge of his bed and there was his dog sleeping soundly, and there was no one else in the house that he knew of. He didn't think much about it, went back to bed. He hears the voice again, go to London town, go to London Bridge, go to London town, go to London Bridge. He wakes up the next morning feeling very tired because he didn't have much sleep. And he thought, I must be crazy. And said, I was hearing voices all night. That's odd. Maybe it was the wind. Maybe it was the rain. So this continues to go on night after night after night until a few weeks later he wakes up and he says, "You know what? There's something about dreams, and I was told a long time ago that I should listen to my dreams because sometimes they have wisdom." So the peddler decided that he was going to listen to the call, and he packed up all the little belongings that he had. He leashed up the dog, and on his way he went walking to London town and London Bridge. A few days later he gets to the bridge, and London town is spectacular for him. He's never been to a big city before, so with the buildings and all the people, and it was just a lot to take in. But he did find his way to London Bridge. And he decided to find a little spot near one of the stalls. Now at that time, there was peddlers selling their wares on either side of the bridge. So this was a welcoming sight to him because this is something that he did and was familiar with. So he chose a particular stall to sit near. And he stayed there for the full day because he realized that, yes, I heard the voice, go to London town, go to London Bridge, but they never told me what to do once I got there. So he sat and he sat and he sat, and a day and a half goes by. And finally, one of the peddlers that was noticing him, because he was in the same spot most of those 2 days, goes over to him and says, "Friend, why are you here? You just come in the early morning and you sit here all day. And then wherever you go at night, you come back, you sit all day. What are you looking for? Is there something that you need help with?" And finally, the peddler, being very happy that somebody came to him and asked him the question, told him the story. He said, I had this dream, and the dream told me, go to London town, go to London Bridge. And so after a while, I decided to follow that voice in my dream and see what would happen. The peddler from London laughed and laughed and laughed and laughed and said, "You're crazy," he said. "I have dreams all the time. As a matter of fact, I've been having this dream that tells me to go to Saffron in the middle of London because there's a house in disrepair, but an apple tree that gives gorgeous fruit at this time of year. And underneath that apple tree, if I dig down deep enough, there's a pot of gold." He said, "Do you think I'm really going to go to Saffron and find some apple tree?" He said, "I'd rather go to the local pub and have a pint." So he looks down to, again, laugh at this guy from Saffron and say, "You're crazy." But the second he looks down, he sees the guy is no longer there. Well, needless to say, the peddler from Saffron ran for 2 days straight back to his little humble abode, to that apple tree, took a spade and started digging. And sure enough, there was the pot of gold. He found it. And with the money, he obviously did up his home. He gave to the community, which was because of his kind heart. So everything around him flourished from that day forward. And I love that story, and I wanted to tell you that story and pass it on because I feel like it's the World card. It's the peddler decided that he was going to listen to the dreams that were in his heart, albeit they were coming from a voice from his dream, which is your subconscious talking to the conscious, right? And he was going to act on it. And he wasn't distracted. He went right to the calling. And through that journey, he realized that everything he really had was all back at home. It was from the place that he started from. So In the journey, he became wise. He saw things he normally wouldn't see. And now he goes home and sees home in a whole new light. And it blesses him with abundance. So that's the story. That's the Major Arcana. This is a chef's grimoire. And thank you so much for watching and being part of it. I hope to see you soon.